The contract was simple: sign, and I'd have the money I needed. What I didn't expect was for him to look at me like that. "You belong to me now," Ethan Maxwell said. My stomach churned. I hated him. Hated the way his cold eyes stripped away every ounce of dignity I had left. But I had no choice. I needed this, my family depended on it. I couldn't afford to fight. He bought me. And now, I was his. "Sign the papers," he repeated, his voice like ice. My hands shook as I lifted the pen. I glanced at him, his expression unreadable. Was this really happening? I could feel the walls closing in as I signed away the only freedom I had left. The second the ink dried, he smiled. It was the smile of a man who just claimed his property. "Welcome to my world," he said, and it felt like a death sentence. I tried to hold my ground, to keep my emotions buried, but his presence was suffocating. The next few days were a blur: distractions, strange glances, and whispers from people I didn't know. I couldn't escape the feeling that something was wrong. And then, when I was at my lowest, he showed up again, not with an offer, but with a demand. "I'm not asking anymore," he said, stepping into my life in ways I couldn't control. "You will obey me." I stared at him, my heart racing. This wasn't a contract anymore. This was a prison. And I had just walked into it willingly. Was this truly the deal I signed up for, or had I just been played? The contract was signed. I was officially Ethan Maxwell's wife. But the weight of it, of him, was already beginning to suffocate me. I hated how he looked at me, as if he owned me. I hated how he kept me on edge, never letting me forget that I was nothing but a business deal to him. I couldn't escape the feeling that every move I made was being watched. It wasn't until I walked into the mansion the next day, that it all hit me: this wasn't just a house. This was his kingdom. And I was trapped in it. I tried to keep my distance, tried to hold on to whatever dignity I had left. But Ethan wasn't having it. "You're not going anywhere," he said. His voice low and commanding. I flinched, the coldness of his words biting at my resolve. "You're mine now. You'll get used to it." I clenched my fists, trying to stop the anger from bubbling up. I had to be careful. One wrong move, and I could lose everything. The more I tried to keep distance, the more he closed in. "You think this is just a contract? Think again," he said, his eyes dark with something I couldn't place. There was no escape. But the worst part? I wasn't sure I wanted to escape anymore. The way he made me feel, confused, terrified, and alive, was something I didn't know how to handle. What was this man doing to me? I couldn't tell. All I knew was that I was tangled in something dangerous. And I wasn't sure how deep it went. Was this just a game to him, or was it something more? The tension between Ethan and me was becoming unbearable. His presence was always felt, even when he wasn't physically near. I could sense his eyes on me, watching, waiting for me to make a mistake. But I wasn't about to let him see how much he was getting to me. I had to keep my distance, stay strong, but it was getting harder every day. "You're still trying to play this game, aren't you?" Ethan's voice cut through the silence one evening as we sat at the dinner table. His gaze never left me, his words laced with something I couldn't name. "I told you, Anna, this isn't just a contract. I'll make sure you understand that." I met his gaze, my heart pounding. "You can't control me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But deep down, I wasn't sure anymore. His obsession was getting under my skin, and no matter how much I fought it, I was starting to feel something. "Oh, but I already am," he replied, a smirk tugging at his lips. The way he said it, so sure of himself, made my blood run cold. I had to remind myself that this was all just part of the deal. I couldn't let myself get attached, not to him. But the more he pushed, the more I found myself responding to him. I was playing a dangerous game, and I knew it. And then, just as I thought I might have a moment to breathe, he dropped the bomb. "You're coming with me tomorrow," he said. "I'm introducing you to my business partners. You'll act like my wife, like it or not. I opened my mouth to protest, but he silenced me with a look. Do you really want to test me, Anna? My pulse raced. I didn't want to go, didn't want to pretend. But I had no choice. Not anymore. His grip on me was tightening, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could hold out. The next morning, Ethan's command hung over me like a dark cloud. You're coming with me today. I don't want to hear any objections. I felt my pulse race. The thought of facing his world, of pretending to be someone I wasn't, made my stomach churn. I had no choice but to comply. His grip on me was suffocating, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could pretend to be his obedient wife. The drive to his office was silent, tension thick in the air. I couldn't even look at him. What was I supposed to say? How was I supposed to play this role? I had no idea. Ethan was the kind of man who never needed to ask. He just commanded, and everyone obeyed. As we entered the building, his presence filled the room. People moved out of the way for him, their eyes lowering in deference. And then, there I was, his wife. Or at least, the woman pretending to be. I could feel their eyes on me, and I hated it. Ethan, on the other hand, was in his element. Confident. Powerful. Unshaken. He didn't even look at me as he introduced me to his colleagues. This is Anna, he said, his voice so casual, like he wasn't pulling my strings behind the scenes. My wife. Those words felt like chains around my wrists. As the meeting dragged on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was just a pawn in his game. A pawn he controlled. A pawn he didn't even care to notice. I tried to keep my head down, but I couldn't ignore how his presence affected me. How his touch, however brief, sent a jolt through my body. He didn't show it, but I could feel it, the way he looked at me when no one was watching. Was this just power? Or was it something else? When the meeting ended, Ethan didn't wait for me. He was already heading for the door, leaving me to follow like some kind of obedient servant. I caught up to him, and just as I was about to speak, he turned. Don't forget, he said, his eyes cold, you're mine. And you will remember that. I swallowed hard. This was just the beginning, I realized. And I had no idea how deep I was already in. The tension from yesterday still lingered in the air, thicker than ever. Ethan's words echoed in my mind, you're mine. And you will remember that. I tried to shake them off, but they stuck with me like a scar I couldn't erase. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel, angry, trapped, or something else entirely. As much as I wanted to keep my distance, every time he looked at me, it felt like he was pulling me deeper into his world. The following morning, I was summoned to his office. No explanation. Just a simple command. Get in the car, he'd said, like I had no say in the matter. The drive was silent. I barely glanced at him, keeping my eyes fixed on the road ahead. His presence was too much to bear. I couldn't stand being near him, yet every time he was around, my heart raced uncontrollably. When we arrived at the office, he led me through the halls like I was just another accessory on his arm. People watched us, their eyes full of curiosity and judgment. I hated it. Ethan noticed my discomfort and smirked. You're not going anywhere, he whispered, close enough for only me to hear. You'll get used to being with me. I could feel the anger rising inside of me, but I kept it buried, burying everything that could give him power over me. After the meeting, I tried to leave, but he caught my arm, his grip firm and unyielding. Where do you think you're going? He asked, his voice dangerously calm. My heart hammered in my chest as I pulled my arm away. I don't belong here, I muttered, trying to escape the suffocating atmosphere. You're wrong, he said, his eyes dark with intent. You're exactly where you're meant to be. His words hit me like a punch, and I couldn't help but wonder, was he right? The next few days felt like I was living in a pressure cooker, and Ethan's grip on me only tightened. Every time he looked at me, I could feel the weight of his expectations pressing down on me. He didn't even have to say anything. His presence was enough to make my pulse race, to make my skin burn. As the days passed, I found myself becoming more and more aware of him, more aware of the way he watched me, the way he controlled every aspect of my life without ever lifting a finger. But I refused to let him see how much I was starting to care, or how much I wanted him to notice. One evening, after a long day of meetings, I tried to slip away, to find a moment of peace. But as I stepped into the elevator, I saw Ethan standing there, waiting. "Going somewhere?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. I froze. My words caught in my throat. I had no excuse, no way to explain the way I was feeling. He was too close, his presence too consuming. "You know," he said, stepping inside, "I don't like it when you run away from me." His words were a challenge, and I knew I was treading dangerous ground. "I'm not running," I muttered, but it felt like a lie. The elevator doors closed, and the air between us grew thick. "Are you afraid of me?" he asked, his voice dropping even lower. My heart skipped a beat. "No," I said quickly, but my voice wavered. He stepped closer, his hand brushing mine. "Then why do you keep pulling away?" The elevator dinged as it reached my floor, but I didn't move. I couldn't. The tension was unbearable. I was drowning in it. And just before I could speak, Ethan's lips were a breath away from my ear. "You're mine, Anna," he whispered. "You will be mine." His words hit me like a wave, and I was lost in his power, his obsession. And I had no idea how to get out. The tension was unbearable, yet I couldn't bring myself to move. Ethan had never been this close, and the pull between us was undeniable. His presence seemed to invade every corner of my mind, every thought I tried to hold on to. I had signed a contract, nothing more. And yet, each time he looked at me, it felt like the lines between duty and desire blurred even further. "Anna," he said, his voice smooth and almost playful, as if he knew the effect he had on me. "Are you going to keep pretending you don't feel this?" His words were a challenge, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of anger mixed with confusion. "I don't feel anything," I shot back, though my voice betrayed me. The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken emotions. He stepped closer, so close that I could feel the heat from his body. "Don't lie to me," he murmured, his gaze intense. "You think I don't see how you react when I'm near you?" My breath hitched, my heart racing in my chest. He was right. I couldn't deny it anymore. The attraction was real, but so was the hatred, the fear, the frustration. "I don't need your games, Ethan," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but the tremor in my words gave me away. He smiled, that infuriatingly confident smile. "You're already playing," he said softly. "You just don't know it yet." My chest tightened at his words. I couldn't trust him. I shouldn't want him. But the way he looked at me, the way he held me in his gaze, made it harder to push away. And then, as if testing me, he reached out, his fingers grazing my arm. I flinched but didn't pull away. "You're mine, Anna," he said again, quieter this time, almost as if he was speaking to himself. And just like that, everything in me screamed to escape, but my feet stayed rooted. How could I possibly fight what was growing between us? The tension between Ethan and me was palpable, each moment spent in his presence a reminder of just how much control he had over my life. The days that followed felt like a constant battle for space, my mind and body pulled in two directions by the force of his presence. I kept reminding myself that I wasn't here because I wanted to be. I was here because I had no choice. But that didn't stop my heart from racing every time he looked at me. The next day, he asked me to meet him in his office. I hesitated, unsure of what to expect. When I walked in, he was sitting at his desk, his expression unreadable. "Close the door," he said, his voice smooth but demanding. I did as he asked, the click of the door feeling like the lock on a cage closing around me. He didn't look up immediately, and for a brief moment, I thought I might escape this meeting unscathed. But then he spoke. "I'm not asking you to like me, Anna," he said, finally meeting my gaze. I'm asking you to trust me. His words hit me harder than I expected. Trust? How could I trust someone who made me feel so small, so powerless? But there was something in his eyes, something that made me question whether I was the one misunderstanding everything. I don't know how to trust you, I replied, my voice barely a whisper. Ethan stood up, slowly walking toward me. Then let me show you. My heart skipped a beat. His proximity was overwhelming, his gaze too intense. He stopped just inches from me, his breath warm against my skin. I will make you trust me, Anna, he whispered, his lips dangerously close to mine. The air between us crackled with unspoken words. I wanted to step back, to push him away, but I couldn't move. Was he playing a game with me, or was there more behind his words? I didn't know. But I was afraid to find out. The next few days passed in a blur of tense meetings and uncomfortable silences. Ethan's words still echoed in my mind, his promise to make me trust him lingering like a shadow. But how could I trust him? Every time I tried to get closer, he pulled away, his emotional distance colder than ever. Yet, every time I looked into his eyes, there was something there, something that stopped me from completely walking away. I hated myself for even considering it, but I couldn't deny the pull he had on me. One evening, as I stood by the window of my room, staring out at the city below, Ethan appeared in the doorway. He didn't knock, just entered like he had every right to. You've been avoiding me, he said, his voice calm but with an edge to it. Why? I didn't turn to face him, but I could feel his presence like a force pressing against me. I'm not avoiding you, I replied, trying to sound unaffected. I'm just trying to figure out what this is. There was a long pause before he spoke again, his voice low and dangerous. You still don't get it, do you? He stepped closer, and I finally turned to look at him. What is it, then? I demanded. What do you want from me? I want you to stop running, he said, his gaze never leaving mine. I want you to stop pretending that you don't feel the same way I do. My heart pounded in my chest, and for the first time, I saw the vulnerability in his eyes. It shook me. You're wrong, I whispered. I don't feel anything. But even as I said the words, I knew they weren't true. He reached out, his fingers grazing my cheek, sending a shiver down my spine. Then why do you keep coming back? He asked softly. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't have an answer. Not yet. But I could feel it, the moment everything was about to change. The days that followed were filled with an unspoken tension between Ethan and me. His presence haunted every room, his words echoing in my head long after he'd left. Despite everything, I couldn't escape the feeling that I was falling into a trap of my own making. I couldn't keep pretending that this wasn't affecting me, that I wasn't drawn to him in ways I couldn't understand. The line between duty and desire was growing thinner every day. One night, after a particularly tense meeting, I found myself alone in the garden, trying to clear my head. The cool night air did nothing to calm the storm inside me. I had to get away, had to figure out what was real and what wasn't. I wasn't sure how long I stood there before I heard his voice. Anna. His tone was low, almost possessive, as if he had been watching me the entire time. I turned to face him, my heart pounding in my chest. I need space, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. No, you don't, he replied, his gaze never leaving mine. You need to stop running from this. From me. His words hit me like a punch. I stepped back, but he closed the distance between us effortlessly. You think you can just walk away from me? Ethan's voice was barely above a whisper, but the intensity behind it made my pulse race. I'm not walking away, I whispered, my throat tight. I'm trying to figure out what I feel. He didn't give me a chance to explain. He stepped forward, his hand gripping my wrist gently but firmly. What you feel is me, he said, his voice soft but undeniable. And I will make you feel it, whether you want to or not. My breath hitched, and in that moment, I knew I had no escape. But was I ready to surrender to this? To him? The air between Ethan and me was thick with unspoken tension, each moment more suffocating than the last. After his words in the garden, everything had changed. I had expected to run, expected to escape, but instead, I found myself right where he wanted me. The next few days felt like a twisted game, and I was both the pawn and the player. He kept his distance, yet somehow, I knew he was watching me, waiting for me to slip. One evening, I came home to find him waiting for me in the living room. "Sit down," he said, his voice calm but commanding. The chill in his tone sent a shiver down my spine. I did as he asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "I've been patient, Anna," he began, his eyes locking onto mine. "Too patient." I swallowed hard. "What do you want from me, Ethan?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I want you to stop fighting this," he said, taking a step closer. "You know it's inevitable. You and we're connected. And you will accept that." I recoiled, my instincts screaming for me to run. But I stayed rooted to the spot, unable to move. "I don't want this," I said, my voice shaking. "You don't have a choice," he replied, his hand reaching out to gently touch my cheek. The contact was electric, sending a jolt through me. "You're mine, Anna," he whispered. "And there's nothing you can do to change that." I could feel his grip tightening on me, and the more I tried to pull away, the more I realized I couldn't. Was I falling into his trap, or was this what I truly wanted? The question twisted inside me, but before I could answer it, he leaned in, his lips brushing my ear. "We're just getting started." The weight of Ethan's words still lingered in my mind as I walked through the grand hallway of his estate. "We're just getting started," he had whispered, and the chill in his voice was enough to send a tremor through me. Despite my resistance, I couldn't deny the pull he had on me. I was trapped in a game I didn't fully understand, yet couldn't seem to walk away from. That night, I found myself in the same position again. Alone, in a room full of people who barely acknowledged me, while Ethan moved through the crowd like he owned the world. His cold, calculating demeanor never wavered, and I couldn't help but wonder, what did he see in me? As the evening went on, he finally approached me, his presence dominating the space around us. "You're not like the others," he said, his voice low and filled with something I couldn't place. "Why do you keep resisting?" I didn't answer him right away. How could I? The truth was, part of me wanted to resist, to break free from his control. But another part of me was drawn to him, to the way he made me feel alive in ways I never imagined. "I'm not your toy, Ethan," I managed to say, trying to hide the fear that had taken root in my chest. He smiled then, a dark, knowing smile. "We both know that's not true," he said, stepping closer. "You're mine, Anna. And you'll come to understand that." I wanted to push him away, to fight back, but his presence was overwhelming. His touch, his gaze, everything about him made me feel like I was falling deeper into his world, and I wasn't sure I could pull myself out anymore. Just when I thought I might find the courage to speak, he leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. "You think you can walk away?" he whispered. "You won't. Not from me." The days after Ethan's words still echoed in my head. "You won't walk away from me." I couldn't escape the feeling of being cornered, trapped in a game I never agreed to play. Every glance, every touch from him had me questioning my own feelings. I hated it. I hated how he made me feel alive, yet suffocated at the same time. He had become an obsession I couldn't rid myself of. I tried to push him away, to create distance between us, but it was futile. Every time I thought I had control, he would step closer, his presence overwhelming. The next morning, I couldn't bring myself to face him, so I locked myself in my room, hoping for a moment of peace. But of course, that wasn't going to happen. Ethan knocked on my door, his voice smooth but firm. "Open the door, Anna." My heart skipped a beat, my hand trembling as I reached for the doorknob. I opened the door, avoiding his eyes. "I need some space," I muttered, but he didn't move. "No, you don't. What you need is to stop running," he said, stepping into the room and closing the door behind him. The air felt thick with unspoken words. "I'm not running," I said, my voice barely audible. But even as I spoke, I knew it wasn't true. Every part of me wanted to run, to get away from him and this mess we had created. But I couldn't. His eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, I saw something that wasn't just control. It was longing. "You belong to me," he whispered, taking a step closer. My chest tightened, and I couldn't breathe. The distance between us felt like an insurmountable chasm, but with every step he took, it shrank. "No," I said, more to myself than to him. But as his fingers brushed my arm, I knew I was lying to both of us. The air in the room was suffocating, every inch of it filled with the weight of Ethan's presence. His hand on my arm was the only thing grounding me, yet it felt like a chains pulling me further into his world. I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "You're still not understanding, are you?" His voice was soft, almost gentle, but the authority behind it sent a shiver down my spine. "I'm not just some man you can walk away from." His words stung, more than I expected. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the control in his voice or the fact that I was beginning to believe him. "I'm not walking away," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm just trying to find a way to make sense of this, of you." His expression softened, but only for a moment. Then, the cold, calculating look returned. "You're already here, Anna. You're already mine," he said, his words echoing in the room. My pulse raced at his declaration. What did it mean to be his? What did he want from me? Before I could answer, Ethan stepped closer, his chest brushing against mine. "Don't fight it," he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. "You're only making this harder on yourself." My mind screamed for me to push him away, to tell him no, but my body refused to listen. The space between us felt charged, like the calm before a storm, and I couldn't breathe. "Please, stop," I finally said, but it was barely a whisper. He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. "I'm not stopping until you understand," he said, his tone both dark and determined. And just like that, I realized I had crossed a line, one I didn't know how to undo. The question that plagued my mind now wasn't just whether I could escape him, it was whether I even wanted to. The weight of Ethan's words hung heavy in the air as I stood there, frozen, trying to process everything. "You're already here, Anna. You're already mine." I wanted to push him away, wanted to scream at him that I wasn't his, that this wasn't what I wanted. But the words caught in my throat. How could I say that when every time I looked at him, my heart betrayed me? Every time he touched me, my skin burned. My mind screamed for me to fight back, but my body was betraying me. I could feel his eyes on me, his presence overwhelming. "What do you want from me, Ethan?" I managed to force the words out, my voice barely a whisper. He smiled, his gaze softening just a little, as if he could see through the walls I had put up. "I want you to stop resisting," he said, his voice low, filled with an intensity one couldn't ignore. "You're already mine. And you always will be." I felt a rush of panic as I tried to pull away, but his hand caught mine, stopping me in my tracks. "Don't fight it," he said gently, but there was something dark in his eyes. "You think you can run away from this? You think you can walk away from me?" I didn't answer, couldn't answer. He was right. No matter how much I wanted to, I couldn't. He had me in a way I didn't understand, a way I didn't know how to break free from. I tried to ignore the flutter in my chest, the warmth spreading through me at his touch. But it was impossible. His grip on me, on my heart, was suffocating, and yet, I didn't want him to let go. And then, as if to seal my fate, he leaned in closer, his breath warm on my ear. "You're mine, Anna. And you'll never escape me." My mind raced as I replayed Ethan's words over and over. "You're mine, Anna. And you'll never escape me." Each time they echoed in my head, I felt a tightening in my chest. Was this really happening? Had I truly fallen into his trap? I hated that I couldn't escape this feeling, the way he had a hold on me without even trying. I wasn't supposed to care. I wasn't supposed to feel anything but hatred for the way he controlled my life. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. I couldn't deny it anymore. The pull, the attraction, it was real. And it terrified me. As I walked through the grand hallway of his mansion, the silence between us felt suffocating. Ethan had been distant for the past few days, as if giving me space. But I could feel his eyes on me, watching, waiting for me to make the next move. I tried to ignore it, to focus on something, anything, other than him. But the moment I stepped into the room, there he was. Standing by the window, his posture confident, but his eyes, those eyes, they were fixed on me with an intensity that sent a chill through my spine. "You're still fighting it," he said, his voice a low, dangerous whisper. "I told you, Anna. You're not going anywhere." I met his gaze, my heart racing. "I'm not your prisoner," I replied, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to remain firm. Ethan stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "You're more than you think, Anna," he said softly, but there was an undeniable possessiveness in his tone. "And I'll make sure you understand that." My breath caught in my throat. What had I gotten myself into? The weight of his words crushed me. Could I really fight this? Or was I already too far gone? Every step I took felt like I was walking deeper into Ethan's world, a world I had no control over. I tried to stay calm, to remind myself that this was just a contract, nothing more. But with every look, every word, he chipped away at that resolve, making it harder to distinguish what was real from what I was being forced to believe. The tension between us was unbearable. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, I found myself in the study, trying to distract myself with paperwork. I needed something to focus on, anything that wasn't Ethan. But just as I thought I might escape into the world of numbers and documents, the door opened, and there he was. "You're avoiding me," Ethan said, his voice calm but with an edge that sent a chill down my spine. I didn't look up. "I'm not avoiding you," I replied, my words too quick, betraying the tension I was feeling. "Then why are you here alone?" He walked closer, his presence almost suffocating. "You don't want to be alone, Anna. You never have." I could feel him behind me now, standing so close I could feel the heat radiating off his body. "Stop pretending," he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. "You're mine. You know that. And the sooner you accept it, the easier this will be." I turned to face him, my heart pounding. "I don't belong to you," I said, the words trembling on my lips. But even as I said them, I knew they weren't true. I didn't belong to anyone, least of all Ethan. But something inside me, something I couldn't explain, was beginning to break. Before I could react, he reached out and cupped my face in his hand. "You already do," he said softly. And just like that, I was lost again. Every time Ethan's presence surrounded me, I felt myself losing control. It was as if he knew exactly how to twist my emotions, how to make me question everything I had believed in. The room was thick with tension when he appeared, his eyes locking onto mine with a look that was equal parts frustration and desire. I couldn't breathe. "You're running from me again," he said, his voice low and steady. "Why?" His words were like a challenge, but they also held something darker, something I couldn't deny. I turned away, avoiding his gaze. "I'm not running," I said, my voice trembling, betraying the lie. "I'm just trying to understand." He moved closer, too close, until I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "There's nothing to understand," he whispered, his breath brushing against my ear. "You belong to me, Anna. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner we can stop pretending." His words hit me like a punch. I wanted to pull away, to scream at him that he was wrong, that I wasn't his to claim. But the moment I met his gaze, I saw something in his eyes, a hunger, a need, a truth that sent a shiver through me. "I don't belong to anyone," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not even you." He stepped back, his expression unreadable, and for a moment, I thought I might be free. But then, he reached out, his fingers grazing my skin as if he had all the time in the world. "You will, Anna," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of a promise. "You're already mine." My breath caught in my throat. The tension, the desire, the pull, it was all too much. And before I could stop myself, I found myself asking the question I'd been running from. What if I don't want this? The words, "you're already mine," echoed in my mind as I stood there, rooted to the spot. Ethan's grip on me was becoming impossible to ignore, each moment pulling me further into his world, a world I was growing less sure I could escape from. I stared at him, my chest tightening. What was happening to me? I wanted to fight it, wanted to yell at him that I wasn't his to control, but my body betrayed me. I couldn't look away. "Why do you keep doing this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He took a step closer, closing the space between us until I could feel the heat radiating from him. "Because I know you want this," he said, his voice low and thick with something I couldn't quite place. "You want me, Anna. And you know it." My heart raced, my breath shallow. "I don't," I lied. But I could feel my resolve cracking with each passing second. He raised a hand, brushing a strand of hair from my face, his touch so soft that it made my skin tingle. "You're lying," he said softly, his eyes searching mine as if he could read my every thought. "You feel this too. I can see it in the way you look at me." His fingers lingered on my cheek, sending a shock of warmth through me. "I'm not going to stop, Anna," he said, his voice so gentle now, almost tender. "You're mine. And you'll understand that soon enough." I wanted to push him away, to scream at him that I wasn't his, but a part of me wanted to surrender, to let go and just feel. As if sensing my hesitation, he leaned in, his lips almost touching mine. My heart skipped a beat. And then, just before I could breathe, he whispered, "Are you ready to stop fighting, Anna?" The question lingered in the air, heavy with promise and danger, leaving me to wonder if I was ready to face the truth of what I was becoming. I didn't know how much longer I could deny it. The weight of Ethan's words still hung heavy in the air, his promise that I was his, replaying in my mind. How had I let myself be drawn in so completely? Every glance, every touch, sent my heart racing, leaving me questioning my own desires. I had always been so in control of my life, and now, everything felt like it was slipping through my fingers. The next day, things only seemed to escalate. Ethan wasn't backing off, if anything, he was pushing harder. I tried to tell myself I could still maintain control, that this was just a phase, but deep down, I knew I was in too deep. I was already entangled in him. "You're quiet today," Ethan remarked as I walked into the room, his gaze sharp, almost predatory. I didn't answer immediately, my chest tight, words failing me. "What's going on in that head of yours?" he asked, his voice calm but commanding. "Nothing," I lied, but he wasn't fooled. "I can see it, Anna. You're trying to pull away, but you won't. You know why?" I didn't move, his words sinking in like a blade to my heart. "Because I won't let you," he said, his steps closing the distance between us. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, his presence overwhelming me. "You're mine," he whispered, standing just inches from me. The intensity in his voice made my breath catch in my throat. I wanted to protest, wanted to deny it all, but when I looked into his eyes, I couldn't. Was it possible that I wanted this, too? Before I could answer myself, he placed a hand on my cheek, his touch burning. "You don't need to say it," he murmured. "I already know." The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. I was losing myself in him, and I couldn't decide if that was the worst part, or the best. Every moment with Ethan left me more and more confused. The line between desire and frustration was blurring, and I couldn't tell which one was winning. His touch, his words, they both shook me to my core. I had never felt so powerless, yet so drawn to someone. The tension was suffocating. But this time, it wasn't his physical proximity that was tearing me apart, it was what he had just said. "I won't let you go, Anna. Not now, not ever." His words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. I wanted to push him away, to scream that I wasn't his to control. But every fiber of my being was telling me something else. I didn't want to let go of him. The thought terrified me, and it pissed me off. I couldn't understand it. You don't get it, do you? I spat, trying to regain some control. I'm not yours. Ethan's expression didn't shift. He took a step closer, his presence suffocating. You already are, he said, his voice calm, almost too calm. You're mine, Anna. I've been waiting for you to admit it. My heart raced, every inch of my body fighting against the truth of his words. I didn't want to admit it. But part of me knew it was true. I don't need you, I whispered, but my voice shook. He smiled, a knowing smile that made my skin crawl. You're lying, he said softly. You need me more than you realize. The silence between us was thick, filled with the weight of everything unspoken. Just when I thought I might break, just when I thought I might push him away for good, he reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek. And I won't let you go, Anna, he said again, his eyes dark with something dangerous. You're mine. I wanted to push him away, but somehow, I didn't move. Was it too late to stop this? Could I ever escape him now? Every moment spent with Ethan left me questioning myself more than ever. I wanted to hate him, to break free from this suffocating connection, but the truth was, I couldn't. I was trapped, by my emotions, by the tension that simmered between us, by him. The night after our confrontation, I couldn't sleep. His words echoed in my head, relentless, demanding. You're mine. And I hated how they didn't feel like a threat but a promise. I had been avoiding him, keeping my distance as best as I could, but I could feel him drawing nearer, sensing my weakness. When I finally got out of bed, I found him in the hallway, standing like a shadow in the dim light. You've been avoiding me, he said, his voice low and controlled. I froze, heart hammering in my chest. I'm not avoiding you, I whispered, though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. Ethan took a slow step toward me, his presence overwhelming. You're not good at lying, he said, his voice tinged with amusement. And I'm not letting you keep running. I wanted to turn away, to flee, but I couldn't. His gaze held me captive. I'm not running, I said, my voice barely audible. His smile was cold, calculating. You already are. I felt a pang in my chest at his words, a sharp stab of something that was almost guilt. Almost. What do you want from me, Ethan? I asked, my voice breaking. I want you to stop fighting this, he replied, his eyes searching mine. You can't keep pushing me away, Anna. You're mine. The finality in his voice crushed any resistance left in me. I wasn't sure whether I should fight back or give in. Either way, I was already too far gone. But before I could respond, his lips brushed mine, claiming me in a way I had no power to resist. Was this truly the end of my freedom, or the beginning of something darker? Every part of me screamed to stop, to push him away, but I couldn't. Ethan had me trapped, and somehow, I didn't want to be freed. The kiss had been everything I feared and more. It was a claim, a promise, a warning. I couldn't deny the way my body responded, betraying my mind. The power he held over me was suffocating, and yet, there was a strange pull, a need I didn't fully understand. We pulled apart, his breath mingling with mine, our faces still too close. His eyes darkened with something more than desire, something dangerous. You're mine, he said again, his voice so soft, yet with an edge that sent a shiver through me. I know you feel it too. I stepped back, but he moved with me, closing the distance again. Stop, I whispered, but my words felt weak, desperate even. You can't keep doing this. I don't care what you say, he replied, his tone cold and unwavering. You're mine, Anna. You've always been. I could feel the walls around me crumble with every word he spoke. I wanted to fight, to scream, but I was drowning in the intensity of his gaze. I'm not a prize to be won, I said, my voice trembling with defiance. Ethan smirked, his expression unreadable. You already are, he said, his eyes scanning my face as if he could see through every layer of resistance I had left. And deep down, you know it. I wanted to scream at him, tell him he was wrong, that I wasn't his. But I couldn't, not when everything inside me felt like it was betraying me. His hand reached out, cupping my face gently, his touch both soothing and possessive. Let go, Anna. Stop fighting me. The tension between us was unbearable, and as his lips brushed against my forehead, I realized I had already lost the battle. The pull between us was undeniable. Each step I took toward him only made me question myself more. Ethan was relentless, and I could feel him drawing me in even as I tried to push him away. But I wasn't sure anymore. Was I really fighting him, or was I fighting myself? The moment he touched me, everything else faded away. He had this hold over me that was stronger than anything I'd ever known. You don't have to fight it, Anna, he whispered, his voice low and compelling. You're already mine. His words made my heart race, but the more I tried to deny them, the more I found myself believing them. I had never wanted to admit it, but deep down, I knew it was true. I was already lost in him. I'm not yours, I managed to say, my voice shaky. But even as I spoke, I felt the lie slipping away. Ethan's gaze darkened, and his hand moved to cup my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. You've always been mine, he said with a certainty that made me feel small, like nothing more than a possession. My breath caught in my throat. The way he looked at me, so intense, so sure, it made everything inside me twist. I couldn't look away, couldn't stop the feelings he stirred in me. You can't keep doing this, I said, trying to find some shred of control. But Ethan only smiled, that same dangerous, knowing smile. I can do whatever I want, he replied, his thumb tracing my lips gently. And you'll come to accept it. I wanted to argue, to push him away, but a part of me didn't want to. A part of me didn't want to fight him anymore. As he leaned in closer, I knew I was falling deeper into his world, and there was no going back. But just as his lips brushed mine, I heard a noise from outside the room. My heart skipped a beat. What was happening now? The sound of the door opening snapped me back to reality, my heart leaping in my chest. Ethan had been so close, his lips nearly brushing mine, when the interruption occurred. He pulled back, a frustrated sigh escaping him. I couldn't help but feel the disappointment in the air between us. Not now, he muttered, his gaze darkening, but he didn't walk away. Instead, he stood there, his eyes never leaving mine. I was about to claim you, Anna. And you let someone ruin it. I could feel the weight of his words settling over me. I didn't mean for this to happen, I said, my voice shaking. But this isn't right. Ethan's jaw tightened, and for a moment, I saw something colder in his eyes. This is exactly how it's meant to be, he said, his voice low and dangerous. You belong to me. And nothing's going to change that. The tension between us was thick, suffocating. I wanted to protest, wanted to tell him that I was more than just his possession. But every time I opened my mouth, the words caught in my throat. I won't let you go, he added, his voice like ice. Not now, not ever. I stepped back, my heart racing. Was I really this weak? This broken? I don't want to be yours, I said, though even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. The way he looked at me, so certain, made my resolve crumble. His smile was almost triumphant as he stepped closer, his body almost touching mine. You don't have a choice, he whispered, his lips grazing my ear. I won't let you walk away. You're mine, Anna. His words sank into my skin, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I could escape. What had I gotten myself into? And was I already too far gone to turn back? Every moment with Ethan felt like a fine line between control and chaos, each step pulling me deeper into his world. The way he watched me, the way his words wrapped around me like chains, it was all too much. I tried to fight it, tried to maintain some semblance of control over my life, but with every passing day, I was losing the battle. He had me, and I couldn't deny it anymore. But that didn't mean I had to like it. You look lost, Ethan's voice broke through my thoughts as he stepped into the room, his presence overwhelming. I didn't turn to face him, afraid of what I might see in his eyes. I'm fine, I said, though the lie tasted bitter on my tongue. No, you're not, he replied, his tone sharper now. You're just pretending. His words cut through me, and I felt a wave of frustration and helplessness flood over me. He was right. I wasn't fine. I was drowning in this, in him. I don't want this, I muttered, barely loud enough for him to hear. He stepped closer, the sound of his footsteps too loud in the silence. You don't get to want it or not, Anna, he said, his voice dangerously calm. You belong to me. And that's how it's going to be. I turned to face him, my heart pounding. I don't belong to anyone, I said, trying to sound confident. But the words felt weak coming from my lips. He reached out, his fingers brushing against my cheek, and for a moment, I couldn't move. You've always belonged to me, he whispered, his breath hot against my skin. The world around me blurred, and I was torn between the anger that burned inside me and the pull that had me frozen. And you always will, he added. The words hit me like a wave, and I knew, I was falling further into his trap. But could I still find a way out? The weight of Ethan's words still pressed down on me, heavy and undeniable. You've always belonged to me, he had whispered, and even though I wanted to fight it, I couldn't ignore the truth in his eyes. I had tried so hard to convince myself otherwise, but every look, every touch from him, chipped away at the walls I had built. I hated how much I was beginning to feel for him, how much I was allowing myself to need him. I couldn't escape the pull between us, no matter how hard I tried. The next day, Ethan didn't let me hide. He was everywhere I went, his presence constant, as if he were a shadow that followed me. He didn't need to say anything, I could feel him watching me, waiting for me to break. I didn't know how much longer I could resist. One evening, he caught me off guard. I was sitting alone in the living room, trying to calm my mind, when I heard him enter. He didn't speak at first, just stood there, his gaze never leaving me. What's going on in that head of yours, Anna? He asked, his voice smooth, almost playful. I didn't answer right away. I didn't know what to say. You're pushing me away, he continued, taking a step closer. But you don't want to. His words were like a thread, pulling at something deep inside me. I stood up, feeling the space between us closing. I don't need you, Ethan, I said, though my voice faltered. He smiled, a dark, knowing smile. You already do, he replied softly. And soon, you'll stop pretending you don't. I wanted to fight him, to tell him that I was stronger than this, but the truth was, he was right. I was already lost. And with each passing day, I realized I was falling deeper into his world. Would I ever be able to find my way out? Or had I already given up the fight? The tension between Ethan and me was unbearable, each moment dragging me deeper into his world, a world I didn't know how to escape. His presence was a constant weight on my chest, suffocating yet addictive. I kept telling myself that this was just a phase, that I could break free, but every time I looked into his eyes, those dark, intense eyes, I found myself losing the will to fight. The next day, things only became more complicated. Ethan was everywhere. His voice, his touch, it was all too much, and I could feel myself cracking. Why do you keep pushing me away? He asked one evening, standing in the doorway of my bedroom, his expression unreadable. I didn't answer. I couldn't. How could I explain what was happening inside me? How could I explain that every time I thought I was free, I found myself falling back into his trap? He stepped inside, his presence overwhelming. You're mine, Anna. You've always been, he said softly, his words sending a jolt of panic through me. I wanted to scream, to tell him that I wasn't his. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was already his, whether I wanted to admit it or not. I don't belong to you, I said, my voice trembling. Ethan smirked, a knowing look in his eyes. You don't have to say it, Anna. I can see it in the way you look at me. You belong to me. His words hit me like a wave, crashing over me. And for a moment, I didn't know what to do. Could I keep fighting him? Or had I already given in? I stepped back, but his hands shot out, gripping my wrist. Don't run from me, he said, his tone low, almost a command. You'll never escape me. His grip tightened, and I was trapped once more. The question wasn't whether I could escape, it was whether I wanted to. The pull between Ethan and me was undeniable. Every time I tried to fight it, every time I told myself I wasn't his, I could feel myself falling deeper. He had me, in ways I didn't even understand. His eyes, his touch, they were everything I tried to resist, and yet here I was, more tangled in him than I ever thought possible. You're not walking away from me, Anna, he said, his voice calm but the threat in it unmistakable. I stood in front of him, my chest tight, my heart racing. I never wanted to, I whispered, more to myself than to him. Ethan's gaze darkened, his hand reaching out to touch my cheek with a tenderness that contradicted everything I feared about him. You think I don't see it? You're mine. All of you. I stepped back, trying to shake off the pull, but his grip on me was too strong. Stop it, Ethan. I'm not some prize to be claimed, I said, though my words felt weak, even to me. He moved closer, his face inches from mine. You're wrong, he whispered, his breath warm against my lips. You've always been mine. And you always will be. My pulse quickened, and despite myself, I felt a shiver of anticipation run through me. I didn't want to admit it, but I was trapped. Not just by him, but by my own feelings. He was right. I couldn't walk away, no matter how much I tried. I was already too far gone. Let me go, I said, more forcefully now, trying to find some shred of control. But Ethan just smiled, his expression dark and knowing. You're already gone, Anna. There's no escape from me. And for the first time, I realized, he was right. I was already lost. What had I gotten myself into? Was there even a way out, or had I given him too much of myself already? The days had passed in a blur of conflicting emotions, but now, standing here in front of Ethan, everything seemed clear. His presence, his control, it was no longer suffocating. In fact, it was something I had come to accept, even embrace. I had tried so hard to fight it, to fight him, but now I realized there was no escape from what we had become. The pull between us was undeniable. We had crossed a line, one I couldn't even begin to unravel. The question wasn't whether I belonged to him, but whether I could ever let go of everything I thought I wanted. I had changed. And I wasn't sure if it was for better or worse. Ethan watched me quietly, his gaze soft, almost tender. Anna, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, you don't have to fight anymore. His words were a reassurance, but they felt like a declaration. I had fought for so long, fought against this bond, fought against my own feelings, but in this moment, I realized I no longer needed to. I wasn't trapped anymore. I wasn't running away. I was here, standing in front of the man who had claimed me, and I had a choice. The choice was mine now. I'm not running anymore, I whispered back, my voice steady for the first time in days. Ethan stepped closer, his hand reaching for mine, and for the first time, I didn't pull away. Instead, I let him hold me, let him pull me in, knowing that whatever happened next, I wasn't afraid. We had come this far, and now, for the first time, I felt at peace with everything. The war inside me was over. I was his, and I was finally okay with that.